Thank you very much. This is the third year I've spoken at this conference, and the update I'm giving you today is rather different from what I had hoped, but I hope it will be useful. I'm going to be telling you my journey so far. I'm going to tell you about embracing mortality, which is something I had to do when I first heard the word cholangiocarcinoma and started looking at the statistics. As a patient, I realized how brutal the statistics were, and I got very involved in campaigning, so that those who came after me would have a better journey and better outcomes. I'm going to be talking a bit about hope and other dreams and fantasies. Those who have heard me speak over the last couple of years will know that I was on a good trajectory until 2024. I was misdiagnosed in 2022 with pancreatic adenocarcinoma by different people. My curious GP was intrigued that my HbA1c had gone through the roof. I had deranged LFTs, and I was given FOLFIRINOX, which halved the size of my tumour. I had Whipples. And then 2 weeks after I had my Whipples, someone rang me up and said, "Good news, you don't have pancreatic cancer, you've got cholangiocarcinoma." And I was very touched by what they said, but actually the 5-year survival rate for cholangio is 5%, pancreatic cancer is 7%. You can argue sort of a couple of percent here and there over numbers, but cholangio was actually a somewhat worse diagnosis than I had appreciated. But I started learning a lot more about it. I sent an email to Helen, to AMMF, and within a few hours I got an email back about sort of giving advice. But basically it didn't look good. My whole medical team, surgeons and oncologists, were all convinced that I was one of the lucky ones, and told me it's looking good. Last year, when I was speaking, I said, I've got a bit of neuropathy, tinnitus. That's not too bad. But then last year I had some indigestion and I had some routine monitoring, and it showed that actually it had metastasized, and I now had a terminal prognosis. It was treatable but not curable. So the good news is that I no longer had survivor's guilt. I no longer felt a fraud talking about cholangio when apparently I was cured. But the bad news was that someone signed off, sort of I had 12 months to live, and that wasn't the best news in the world. I had a pretty awful time on chemo. I'm now stable on immunotherapy, which is very nice, but at some point that will probably run out. When you're feeling well and everyone's telling you you're feeling well, it is really, really hard to imagine dying. This is the famous Damien Hirst shark, the impossibility of death in the mind of someone living. You can't imagine being dead. But this is something that patients who, we all know the statistics, know that is probably going to be the result. I was always puzzled by the mathematics of Helen saying that mortality tracks incidence, but most of us will die. My lovely CNS, Rachel, always tells me, "You are not a statistic. Don't worry about the statistics, focus on you. It's your journey, it's your disease." Those of you who were here last year will remember Tamara, who spoke very, very, very eloquently about being diagnosed with stage 4 after being fobbed off for about 10 months, being told it was sort of gynae problems. And she said, what I like to call stage 4 is it's currently incurable. She died 2 weeks ago, but I think she touched everyone who is here today. I want to pay tribute to her mother, Naomi, who I met 2 years ago. She was utterly inspirational because she recognized that when you have hope, what you need to do, you need to survive long enough for all those amazing treatments that are on the horizon or just beyond the horizon. And if you can survive long enough, then you've got a chance. And you've got to hang on to that hope for you personally. And that's, I find, a really, really important message. I've had to stop working because I can't go to all the places I used to go to as a tourism consultant. I've got into campaigning. I'm now on various NHS groups, say, for diabetes, cholangio. I now advise destinations who are emerging from conflict on a pro bono basis. But I also have to be that sort of parent, spouse, sibling, and sort of letting people know, yes, it'll be okay. I've got my last thing said I was stable, so don't worry too much. But yes, I'll probably die in the end. But and being strong for people out there. It's a team effort, as you all know, managing these pesky patients. It really is a team effort. The nurse-patient, the CNS patient relationship is absolutely critical. On Tuesday, I was working in the Nurse Learning Day, and we were talking about how important it's the CNS who knows all the different disciplines and brings them together. Probably far more important than the oncologist and surgeon, who do some important stuff, but it's the CNS that is actually critical. The UK has CNS protocols. It's one thing we do really, really well in this country with CNSs. So be nice to your CNS. Statistics. So you can argue over a few percent here and there, but essentially 50% on the right will be dead within 12 months. Another 30% won't be candidates for surgery. And so they might, through testing, find some interesting mutations. They might get some sort of great stuff that's coming through these different trials. But the only thing with curative intent at the moment is surgery, the sort of 20% up in the top left segment. And of that 20%, 75% of us will have a recurrence. So it will get us in the end. The great improvement, advance, is, of course, immunotherapy, and people are surviving on immunotherapy for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I'm hoping to be here for a wee bit longer, not the 12 months when I was originally told, but it's pretty grim. These were produced in 2013. They were published in September, just after I'd got my June 2023 post-Whipple's diagnosis. I always refer back to these, and one of the things I discovered very early on is that every region, country of the UK, nation of the UK, interprets and enacts and implements the BSG guidelines completely differently. We're all pretty good on using the CNSs. We are all pretty good on the MDTs and using a team approach to manage things. The CNS is the conductor and keeps things going. I remember originally in June when I contacted AMMF, and I said, what is the gold standard monitoring for someone who is cured of cholangiocarcinoma? And I got this actually long explanation from Helen saying, well, in Europe they do this, in England they do that, and didn't really mention Scotland because Scotland is sort of some way off there. But basically there was no consistency. So one of the things I sort of started looking at is what else is happening elsewhere. It became very clear that molecular profiling was really important. But in Scotland, they did one, maybe two mutations that they looked at, and one of these was funded by industry. At the time, I think there was about sort of 12 or 14 being done in England. There was a complete lack of equity between North and South. It didn't seem very fair. So although I was told I was cured, I decided that I might ask my MSP, and the sort of campaigning began. I was part of this pretty group of Faces of Cholangiocarcinoma in 2025, and you'll be hearing from a few of us tomorrow during this week. When was it? October 24, my MSP first raised in Holyrood the whole question about molecular testing and why was there a difference between England and Scotland. And the Minister of Health, the First Minister both said, yes, this is unfair, we will sort it out as soon as possible. It took us 16 months to get anywhere, but we were told that before Christmas 2025, we'd get something. So on the 17th of December 2025, we finally got funding promised. They suggested the 1st of February. It actually happened on the 27th of February, the funding came through, and suddenly molecular profiling was available on NHS Scotland, which was very, very welcome. We got there in the end. BSG guidelines on monitoring. There's not a lot of clarity here. This was a sort of an annex written, I think, in 2024, saying that, yes, there should be some monitoring. Speaking to a couple of profs last year, they said they were going to be writing up some protocols for monitoring, which I don't think have appeared yet. I would love to see them appearing. Last year, I was at a conference in North America, and I was speaking to a consultant about monitoring, and they said, why bother? If you get a recurrence, it's going to kill you. Why would you want to know? And the reason you want to know is because there are lots of amazing things on the horizon or just beyond the horizon, and we want to get there as quickly as we possibly can. When I had my recurrence, I think it was the 18th of August, I was told this new prognosis, and then I think it was the 3rd of September, I was back on chemo, gemcitabine, oxaliplatin, and durvalumab. You want to know as quickly as possible to give you the best possible chance. I feel I'm probably looking better today than I would because of routine monitoring. So let's get some monitoring guidelines soon, please. As a patient, I'm the cholangiocarcinoma rep on a HPV panel in Scotland. The Scottish Government has told us to come up with a cancer pathway, 3 phases: presentation, diagnosis, referral, and treatment. I've suggested maybe we should get monitoring there as well, and I think we're going to do that, because quite often oncologists will say, well done, you're cured, go away now. But there's a case, I spent far too much time on online forums. There's a case of a woman in North America who recently, after 16 years, her cholangiocarcinoma came back. And it's genetically the same as what she had 16 years ago. it's such a brutal disease. It sort of lies down there, squirreling away, and then suddenly it reemerges. I had 2.5 years of remission, which was wonderful, and I started traveling and working again. But I think it's going to get me in the end. People are very sweet. I was sent some stuff by a botany professor in South Africa. I was sent some stuff by a tourism colleague in Jamaica. So many people have told me about these horse pills. A friend in Russia has sort of told me about a couple of clinics in Moscow who are doing great things with personalized mRNA vaccines, and my family isn't very keen on me going to Russia at the moment, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there. So thank God for all the scientists out there. Keep doing what you're doing, because I mean, if everything goes south, maybe I will try some sort of outlandish things. But at the moment, I will trust the scientists in this room. In 2024, I had this lovely time of traveling and working again. I had hope, and I took... Ooh, where's this gone? Sorry. Potential campaign priorities for 2020. We're going to make sure that there are some monitoring protocols. We're going to make sure that this is very political, but there is a need to centralize. There are some centers who are doing like 5 or 6 cholangio cases a year, which is not enough. And then standardizing liquid biopsies, because there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that these are more sensitive. So coming back, we are not just statistics as patients. We are currently, a lot of us are currently incurable. But let's trust the scientists. Let's bring stuff forward as soon as we possibly can. There is serious hope. So AMF's hope there. I just want to end by paying tribute to Tamara, who reminded us all of being positive when you are faced with mortality, who reminded us that being positive, being hopeful, gives others hope, and is probably a good reminder to the non-patients of why we're all here today. Thanks very much.